Western Conference Finals in the NBA continue tonight, KJ. Game 4, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central in the Twin Cities. The Thunder are up 2-1 in this series, have a chance to put the thing in a stranglehold. They're favored by 3.5 over the Timberwolves. Minnesota plus 135 plus 125 on the money line in that neighborhood. 218.5 the total this morning at BetMGM. And a chance for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to really sort of put a stamp on an MVP win that I think, look, a lot of people look at and go, there's questions about it. I personally, myself, when you're the best player on the best team in the league throughout the year, that award's going to go to you. But the Jokic fans out there made their argument for him, certainly, throughout the season. A chance for SGA to kind of put a stamp on himself as the face of the league right now. As we transition from one generation to another, it feels like this is an opportunity for the Oklahoma City Thunder, by putting a stranglehold on this series tonight, if they can do so, to put SGA out in front for the NBA. And yes, as much as the league might want an Anthony Edwards to market, we talked about the idea of Indy OKC in the finals and, Adam Silver not being necessarily excited about those two markets going head-to-head in the finals. OKC New York, if it were to go the other way, if that were the matchup, or just the Thunder in the finals, makes sense. The best team in the league not ending up in the finals would be falling short for Oklahoma City again this year. And while they're still a very young team, this is their opportunity to take that step forward.
Well, you can see why the league would want Anthony Edwards to be the face of the league, because Edwards is a lot less letters than Gilgeous-Alexander on the back of a jersey in a time of tariffs. Who wants to put an extra cost on a jersey for the face of the league that's got like 17 vowels in his last name? Look, I think if
kids can't spell it, right?
That's what's the point? How are you really the MVP when you can't even spell it, huh? So maybe we just put SGA on the back of his jersey. What a way to kind of save in this economy. But no, I think there's a part of the NBA that would do well to have the league MVP have to try and win the title the same year in New York City. I'm not saying that I want the Knicks to win it, but I think it adds a little element of storyline. I'm a big storyline person. Like, that's really great. Give me a score, whatever. What's the story? And so that's why I think I see what you're saying. Like, for him to try and cement, Anthony Edwards, like, I get it, but it feels forced. It's kind of like, okay, like, did you lose a coin flip to Jason Tatum with the Celtics for like who's going to be the face? And then with SGA, I know some people with the Jokic argument, but everything in this league is about time and stories, right? If you go back the year that Karl Malone won the MVP and you're like, yeah, so Jordan was healthy and played in games and he didn't win it. It was because Karl Malone like coming really close the year before and they wanted to do something different. So I totally get SGA being the MVP this year. I don't have an issue with it. I think if anything that I do have an issue with Oklahoma City is they've never been at that next level stage. So it would be a high disappointment to see them have all these wins. They had all those wins last year, got knocked out early. I don't know if they get knocked out of this series this year, but to see them potentially get to an NBA Finals and kind of just blow a tire and go out 4-1, it would be like, okay, like you would really probably have to have a conversation of making alterations to the team just because you feel like they can't get over the hump and having the MVP.
Yeah, I do think – I don't know if they'd pull the trigger on any kind of major moves this offseason because they've been very – it strikes me they've been patient with the build, right? Like they've taken just enough steps year after year over the last 3 years to put this team together the way they want it.
Well, they've spent no money. Didn't they get money back from the league like 4 or 5 years ago because they were under the lowest ceiling? Like they were under the cap.
And they've taken advantage of that, right?
Right.
And they've done a good job. I think it's interesting. I think they've been, and I applaud them, in a league where people do make those snap decisions and knee-jerk reactions sometimes to early exits, to not to letting this team build and come together the way it has. And it's why I still like the Thunder in this series, and I like the Thunder overall as a team. Let's say they do fall short in this series, or they go to the finals and lose. I still think they're going to take whatever the next step is next year without having to make any major moves. They do have, like we just talked about, one of the faces of the league leading things right now in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, minus 800 to win the Western Conference Finals MVP award. I will say this, at 7-1, if you believe in a Minnesota comeback in this series, and there's no reason to believe they can't do it, down 2-1, Ant at 7-1 for Conference Finals MVP, that's the bet I would make. That guy still has the chance to take over a game at any given moment. He still has the ability in the clutch to come up big. And that's my one worry, if I'm a Thunder fan, is that the games we have won in these playoffs, we have won by wide margins, right? We've won games where you go to bed in the middle of the third quarter and feel secure in knowing that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and your phone's going to tell you, okay, yeah, we won by 25 or we won by 38 or whatever it may be. I want to see the Thunder get in a game, and tonight would be a good spot on the road in particular, where they've got to hit the big shot. They haven't had to do that more than a couple of times in these playoffs. I want to see the Thunder, rather than winning another one running away, if I'm a Thunder fan, yeah, that's nice. That's all well and good. Like I said, I can go to bed early and not worry about it. But I want to see them win one in the final possession, in the final two possessions, against a team with a clutch player like Anthony Edwards, who seemingly always finds the big bucket in crunch time. If this thing is tight late, that's when I go back in on Minnesota. They're getting 3.5 right now this morning. A tight game, I like the T-Wolves. That's still where I am because of Anthony Edwards and because the T-Wolves have proven themselves able to win those games.
Yeah, tonight's a blowout. Like, I would even look at the alt line. Oklahoma City, you take 11.5, you get plus 290. Because like you just said this, when they win, it's a blowout. Mm-hmm. They probably win tonight, and it will probably be a blowout. When you go back to, Anthony Edwards, you get him in a key situation. Yeah, when have you seen that in this series? Not at all. So what do they say? Past events are predictors of potential future events. So the potential future event tonight is that Oklahoma City kind of throttles them again. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win this game by a dozen. So just because you've seen these things happen in this series, and even game 3, I was not surprised that Minnesota won in a blowout. What happened in the Oklahoma, if you look at it as a comp as the Indy series, what happened to them in that Cleveland series? Game 3, Cleveland pretty much won in a blowout. It wasn't a statement about the series. That was just a statement of one game. And even in one game, like, you can't tell me that Minnesota just suddenly, it's different than what the Knicks did in that one game, right? What the Knicks did in one game has me rethinking the series. What Minnesota did in that one game against Oklahoma City, with it being a blowout, has not changed my mind. Just because it would be one thing if, like, hey, the first 2 games were close, and then Minnesota blew them out in the third game, then I would say, okay, it gives me something to think about. But if it's like blowouts on 2 sides and blowout on one side, I'm going to go out with the side that has 2 blowouts probably still has another 2 blowouts left in them to win the series. I think every game that is won in this series by these teams is going to be over 7.5 points easily.
Yeah, I'm leaning in more on that narrative that I laid out a moment ago. I think if Minnesota can keep this close, and you can get the ball in Anthony Edwards' hands, he shot really well in that loss. It was an ugly loss, obviously, and he didn't only ended up playing 30 minutes, but 70% from the field. He's had 9 boards in each of the first 3 games of this series, and twice has gone 30 or more. He's at 28.5 at BetMGM tonight. I'd taken Edwards over on his points prop, and I might look at rebounds as well. Edwards right now 8.5. If I can find the line on a double-double as well, I think we get an Anthony Edwards game tonight to even this series up.
But see what's crazy what you're saying, Chris? He's going to score over 28.5. He's going to have a high rebound number. And yet Oklahoma City is still favored in the game by 3.5. right? So you're literally saying this guy is going to probably go for 30, and there's a chance they're going to lose.
So that's why and that's kind of part of the baked in logic to why I go after Edwards props tonight. If I'm betting this game, if I'm a neutral observer and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, to your point, OKC only wins in blowouts, right? Minnesota wants to keep things tight, I think, so that they can get the ball in the final possession in Anthony Edwards' hands, and so that he can be the driver of this game, at least for them offensively. Obviously, that's their strategy in any game, but I think especially in a tight game in crunch time, they're going to feed him even more so. I think all the narratives come back around, all of the storylines, all of the possible paths circle us back around to, even if they lose, right? Again, like game 3, when he only played 30 minutes and still dropped 30. I think everything comes back around to Edwards having another big statistical night, which is why I like his props.
Oh, yeah.
I just also think that in this case, I don't think I'd take the 3.5 because, to your point, again, you never know when OKC is going to blow out the second quarter, and we're going to look at a 25-point halftime lead, and then things just devolve from there. But whatever happens, I'm in on Anthony Edwards showing up tonight at home in Game 4 with an opportunity to tie up the series. Even if they don't succeed in winning the game, I think that's my bet for tonight as I lean in on Anthony Edwards props.
So clearly you're not looking at any of the Rudy Gobert props or the Michael Conley props. The point I'm getting to is you're saying he's all they've got. He's basically all they've got. He's the volume guy. I don't want to say he's
all they got, but if Minnesota's going to come back and win the series,
come on, Chris.
He's got to be the guy.
The song isn't called "He's 80% of the man that I ever need." He's all the man that I ever need. He fills up the stat sheet. He's going to take the volume of shots. If anything, especially if the 3-point shot doesn't fall for Minnesota, which it seems like they've been heavily relying on, and I think that's more indicative of Oklahoma City's size than it is Minnesota's style of play. Like, Minnesota can't really do what they're built to do, which is kind of get to the offensive glass and be able to drive to the paint. Like, if anybody, I would look at a Hartenstein double-double prop.
Okay.
Just because of the volume of shots going up, and because of Minnesota not really being omnipresent at the glass,
right?
Because of all the size. The reason why I put such a high number out there is not to sound crazy about Oklahoma City in the 11.5. Oklahoma City is one of those weird teams that when they put their scrubs in, they're not scrubs. They still score. Most of the time when you see bench shots go up, you're like, this is why the guy's at the G League. You're like, hey, no. This guy had 7 points early in the game, and they're still hitting their shots. So Oklahoma City's bench still hits their shots. So a game that might be an 8-point game with subs coming in with 2 minutes left can easily become an 11.5-point spread just because the talent that's out there is a little bit better.
I almost wonder if Oklahoma City continuing to blow people out in these playoffs, if they keep it up into the finals, it sounds crazy, but does it take some of the shine off of them if they were to make a run to the title, blowing everybody out? Because these playoffs have been so crazy, so tight, so many big moments. If the Thunder don't have any of those wildly big moments that we remember, does it change the way we look back at their title?